we are in Exodus 28, and we really are winding down in Exodus. There's some stuff still to go through. We're going to jump a little bit from place to place because I don't want to say it gets boring, because it doesn't get boring. But if we spend a lot of time in a Bible study format, way down in the weeds about all the particulars of every single thing, I'll lose all of you. And I don't want to lose you. So I encourage you to listen to all of it. It's all important. It is all valuable. But for our purposes, I just want to focus on some of the things that have more specific interest to us. So we're going to talk today about the priest's garments in Exodus 28, and then we're going to jump all the way to Exodus 32. But let us begin. Then bring near to you Aaron your brother and his sons with him from among the people of Israel to serve me as priests. Aaron and Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. And you shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother for glory and for beauty. You shall speak to all the skillful, whom I have filled with the spirit of skill, that they make Aaron's garments to consecrate him for my priesthood. These are the garments you shall make: a breastpiece, an ephod, a robe, a coat of checker work, a turban, and a sash. They shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother and his sons to serve me as priests. They shall receive gold, blue, and purple, and scarlet yarns, and fine twined linen. Okay. And don't worry, we're not going to go through all of this in great detail, because it gets very specific. It gets very specific because God had specific things he wanted done. He wanted things done a certain way. And we're not going to go through all of this with the types of thread and yarn and colors and everything else that are used. But when you do listen to it, make note of this. The color and the ornamentation of Aaron's garments, and Aaron was the high priest. There are priests. That's going to be his sons, Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. They're priests, but they are not the high priest. The garments of the high priest are adorned, the colors that are used, down to the pomegranates that are used, are in keeping with what there is in the inner sanctum, the Holy of Holies, in the temple. His clothing fits the area in which he serves. And so the other priest's garments, which we're not going to talk about today really at all, but their garments are still special, but they are in keeping with the decoration of things more in the outer part of the temple, in the holy place and in the outer court. One thing this is a big picture thing here. The garments that the priests wear were akin to what royalty would wear, as far as the colors and all of that, these blues and purples, these other things, and gold. Those were things that were worn by kings. So with that, we're going to jump into something that we need to make sure that we have clear, that we keep in mind. The high priesthood, Aaron being high priest, is itself an exception to the norm. It is the result of a concession. What was the concession? Think. Way on back in Exodus 3 and 4, where Moses is before the burning bush. God had called Moses, and God said to Moses, along with, I am that I am. That's who sent you. Along with all that, he sent Moses. He called Moses. He appointed Moses to go to Pharaoh. And Moses kept saying what? I don't want to go. Please send someone else. I mean, we laughed at it. It is comical. And again, it's comical and I can laugh at it as long as I remember this. I'm the same way. Oh, can't you find somebody else to do this? I don't want to do this. This is hard. It comes down to us in our walk of faith. Oh, I don't want to be the oddball who's the weird one, who's the Jesus freak and have everybody think I'm different and odd. I don't want to do that. Don't call me. Just, can I get off easy? Can I not have to have any sacrifice or service or suffering? I don't mind the service part. And remember, we are all called to carry the cross. We are all called to take up our cross and follow Jesus. And the theology of the cross is 3 S's. Service. I serve him. It's why I exist. I don't just randomly pray that we might be more effective and faithful servants of you because I don't know what else to say. It's the most important thing that I am and that you are. We are his servants. And I need help with that because I'm a coward, because I'm stupid, because I'm lazy, because I'm all kinds of things that get in the way of me being his servant. I'm selfish. I want to serve myself, not him, right? Service requires sacrifice. It requires sacrifice. I'll give up other stuff. I'll leave other stuff. And we've talked about that recently, talked about it Wednesday night. What are you willing to give up? If called to, like Matthew, like Peter, James, John, and Andrew, left the boats, left the nets. Matthew left the tax collector's booth, left a really easy life of wealth and comfort, left it all behind to follow Jesus. What are we willing to leave? Well, Moses didn't want to suffer. He didn't want to face Pharaoh. And we get it. We understand. Pharaoh was a really scary guy, just like the powers of the world now, that are still the same powers of the world as they were then, and the powers and principalities of the air, the rulers in the heavenly realms, the spiritual realms. They're scary. They're powerful. And I'm nothing. I'm nobody. I'm afraid of them. I don't want to go before them. I don't want to have to stand up to them. When I think about the end times and all this stuff coming down, I find myself thinking it'd be really neat to see, be really neat to be there. I hope I don't have to suffer. I hope that none of that scary stuff really applies to me, right? Well, Moses didn't want to face it either. He kept saying, oh, can't you send someone else? And so God gave a concession. He gave a concession. And he said, well, there's your brother Aaron. He's coming out to see you. He can do the talking. Because Moses said, I don't speak very well. You know, Aaron will do the talking. Right? He'll be your mouthpiece. That's not the way God wanted it. He was patient and gave a concession. Always before, it was God led through one. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. So that office, I'm getting back to the garments being like those of a king. That office was both king and priest and prophet, spoke for God to the people, prophet, priest, and king. But Moses balked. Moses said no. Moses said, oh, somebody else. And so that office that was intended to be one, that always had been one unified office of prophet, priest, and king, got split. Who is Jesus? Jesus has a 3-fold office. He is prophet, priest, and king. Right? Here, let's look at it. Hebrews 3:1. And Hebrews is a great book that explains how Jesus is the fulfillment of all this stuff in the Old Testament. Because for the Jews, it was hard to move on from that stuff. They wanted to hold on to it as though it had substance in and of itself. It only had substance because it pointed to Jesus, because it was about Jesus. Once you have Jesus, the stuff that pointed to him, and I always liken it to a preview for a movie. Why do I want to watch the preview for Raiders of the Lost Ark? I know the movie by heart. I don't need to see the preview. I know the movie. Hebrews 3:1, therefore, holy brothers, you who share in a heavenly calling, consider Jesus the apostle and high priest of our confession. What did Jesus do? He went into the Holy of Holies, not the earthly copy, but the one up in heaven, and made atonement for us. That veil in the temple here on earth was torn from top to bottom, and now we can boldly approach the throne of grace through Jesus Christ. We are a kingdom. 1 Peter 2:9. It was 1 Peter 2:9. We are a kingdom of priests. King, priest, they go together. Hebrews 4:14. Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. That deals with the cowardly part. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Part of the thing of a priest is the priest understood the people. He was one of them. He represented the people. We're going to talk about that with the close when we get back to that. He understood them. He too was weak. He too had temptation. Jesus was tempted, yet without sin. That didn't apply to the high priest. He had to make atonement for his own sin, all kinds of sacrificial stuff before he could go in there on the Day of Atonement and hit the reset button. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in our time of need. I'm weak. He is strong. The best song in the world, Jesus Loves Me, This I Know, tells me that. Paul knew it. When I am weak, then I am strong. That's why God let him suffer with whatever disease, ailment, painful thing that he had through which Satan buffeted him. It's okay to be a coward. Just know where you run when you're a coward. I run to Jesus, not away from him. Where Jesus is, this is Hebrews 6:20, where Jesus has gone as a forerunner on our behalf, having become a high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. That Melchizedek thing is important. Abraham, when he came back from rescuing Lot, he paid tithes to Melchizedek, and Melchizedek blessed him. Melchizedek, who was king of Salem, also known as, Jerusalem, he was a priest and a king. He was both. And we don't know the lineage of Melchizedek. That's why it talks about without father, without mother, without genealogy. It's just saying the Aaronic, not ironic, the Aaronic priesthood, you had to be a descendant of Aaron to be a priest. To be a high priest, you had to be a descendant of Aaron. Genetically, you had to be a descendant. Well, Jesus wasn't. Jesus wasn't from the tribe of Levi, which is what Aaron was from, but rather the tribe of Judah. But he is the high priest. That's why it talks about after the order of Melchizedek, first of all, because he didn't have that lineage, neither did Melchizedek, but also that he was a priest and a king. Those two things were together, along with being prophet, because he definitely spoke for God. In the hymn, I know that my Redeemer lives. He lives, my prophet, priest, and king. And when you look at the activities of Jesus, you can see those different roles that he's carrying out, sometimes more than one at a time. But those three things, prophet, priest, and king, will define all of his activity. So there, about the priesthood. Why Aaron and not Moses? It's because Moses asked for it. and it's a concession. And we could spend a whole lot of time talking about that, but we've talked about it enough. And you shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother, for glory and for beauty. The garments that a king would wear, the adornment that was there, had to do with glory, the honor that was due him, all of that is the God-given ruler and king, etc. I want to let's see if we can get this to pop open. This is a good picture because it talks about all these things. It's good to see it portrayed for us, what these things that are talked about looked like. And you see the colors here, that blue that is so expensive. And he's barefoot. Why is he barefoot? And he looks like he's got a hammer toe, just like me. These toes on that foot over here, they don't look right. Anyway, he's barefoot. Why? Because he's on holy ground, just as Moses was in Exodus 3. But the colors, the blue, the fringe with pomegranates and little bells, all of that stuff, the turban that is like a crown because it had a golden thing on it that said, holy to the Lord, right? That's what the crown was. He's holy to the Lord. He's the one who's appointed to go in there and do all these things. These are the things that go on the shoulder, and on them, they're onyx stones engraved with gold filigree in there that had the names of the sons of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel are there on his shoulders. And that's the idea that the priest is in his activity. And simple definition of a priest. Priest is a go-between between God and man, between man and God. He's the go-between. So when Aaron went in there, he was not going of his own accord. It wasn't about him. He was going as the representative, God's chosen representative of the people. And so doing, he carried them with him. And so the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, 6 on one onyx stone, 6 on the other, were there on his shoulder. And then you've got the breast piece that is there, and we'll read about that. But it had 12 semi-precious stones on it, and on those were engraved, each one of them, the names of the tribes of Israel. Again, that representative concept. That's what he was. That's what he was doing. And the fact that it said holy to the Lord across his forehead, that is the idea of service. He's set apart. Holy means special, separate, set apart, all of that. He's set apart for this duty to represent the children of Israel. You shall speak to all the skillful whom I have filled with the spirit of skill. And we're going to do this because we've talked about it. And I made sure, I just got to find my note and find my note where I wrote it down. There it is. And now I can't find it. That note wasn't what I thought it was. I was trying to find the place where the two guys whom God gives this special skill to them to be able to do all this stuff, to make it look so awesome. And I was thinking about that again yesterday because Deb saw this thing on Facebook and shared it. It's this guy who does sand art. And it's insane. It looks like a real bull. It looks like a real lion. It looks like a real dog. Just the skill that some people have, and it's a God-given ability. And as great as the skills are that God gives people, we can look at those things and musicians and artists, etc. Can you imagine the level of skill he gave to the two guys who were in charge of doing all this stuff? Because this stuff was what all skills and abilities should be used for, which is what? To glorify God. It gets twisted into other stuff. The artist, the person, whatever my skills and abilities, I want to glorify myself. I want praise and people saying, wow, isn't he great? About me. This is all about glorifying God and worshiping him as he should be worshiped. Can you imagine the level of skill that those guys had and what this stuff must have looked like? How amazing it must have been. These are the garments they shall make: a breastpiece, an ephod, a robe, a coat of checker work, a turban, and a sash. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother and his sons to serve me as priests. Thou shalt receive gold, blue, purple, and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen. And again, remember where we are. And I should have started with this. We're still up there on the mountain. This is Moses. Joshua's there with him somewhere. 40 days. 40 days. Moses doesn't eat. Moses doesn't drink. He tells us in Deuteronomy that whole time. Sustained by the Lord, you cannot go. You can go a long time without food. You cannot go without water. God was sustaining him. He's up there on the mountain still 40 days and 40 nights. And they shall make an ephod of gold and of blue and of purple and scarlet yarns and of fine twined linen, skillful work. So this big thing here is the ephod, that garment that he's wearing. And they shall make an ephod of gold, purple, and scarlet. It shall have 2 shoulder pieces. That's what we talked about, those shoulder pieces there. Attached to its 2 edges so that they may be joined together, and skillfully woven band on it shall be made like it, and be of one piece with it, of gold, blue, and purple, and scarlet yarns, and fine twined linen. You shall take 2 onyx stones and engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel, 6 of their names on one stone, and the names of the remaining 6 on the other stone, in the order of their birth. As a jeweler engraves signet, so shall you engrave the 2 stones with the name of the sons of Israel. You shall enclose them in settings of gold and filigree, and you shall set the 2 stones on the shoulder pieces of the ephod as stones of remembrance for the sons of Israel. And Aaron shall bear their names before the Lord on his 2 shoulders for remembrance. You shall make settings of gold filigree and 2 chains of pure gold twisted like cords, and you shall attach the corded chains to the settings. And those chains are what's going to hang this. You shall make a breastpiece. This is the breastpiece of judgment in skilled work in the style of the ephod. You shall make it of gold, blue, and purple, and scarlet yarns, and a fine twined linen. You shall make it. It shall be square and doubled, a span its length and a span its breadth. And the span is 9 inches or 22 centimeters. Its length, a span, and its breadth. You shall set it in 4 rows of stones, a row of sardius, topaz, and carbuncle. I love carbuncle. That's such a goofy name. Shall be the first row, and the second row an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond, and the third row a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. And the 4th row a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold filigree. There shall be 12 stones with the names according to the names of the sons of Israel. Now, with that, some of these stones are probably too hard to engrave. I don't know that you could engrave a name into diamond. It's like the hardest substance there is. It could well be that underneath each stone had their names. The name was connected with the stone. They shall be set in gold filigree. There shall be 12 stones with their names according to the names of the sons of Israel. They shall be like signets, each engraved with its name in the 12 tribes. You shall make the breastpiece of twisted chains and cords in pure gold. And you shall make for the breastpiece 2 rings of gold, and put the 2 rings on the 2 edges of the breastpiece. And we go on and on and on with all of this. But the picture being there is the idea of royalty connected with this because of the colors, even though here the office is divided, and the stuff that matches the level of service that priest was giving. Because the other priests, if we were to go down and read through all of that, their stuff was very special, but it wasn't anything, pardon me, it was not anything like the high priest. So we're gonna stop there with all of the decorations and ornamentation and the furniture. There's still some more things that it's going to go through. Oh, we should mention the hold on. The Urim and the Thummim, right here. It's really interesting. We don't know a whole lot about them. We don't know exactly how they were used. That they were about God answering things. But there isn't ever just a clear explanation of how they were going to be used or how they were used. But it was like one was white, one was black. You know, you could ask God things. The high priest could, apparently, at times. But I don't want to get into it too much because we could rabbit hole on that quite a bit, talk about it quite a bit. And in the end, the answer is still, we don't really know how they were used, but they apparently were important because they go like in a pocket behind the breastpiece above his heart. And it, you know, we always need to remember, even with this stuff, the level of detail that is given, there's stuff we don't know. There's stuff we're not able to know, and we can spend a lot of time speculating about it. That can be interesting, but it is just that. It is, at some point, it just becomes speculation. The Bible, it is not the Word of God's purpose to tell us everything that we want to know. It is the purpose of the Bible that we would know Jesus and believe in him and have faith in his name and be saved. That's what it's all about. We'll say the one thing, there are pomegranates. That's what these things are down here in between the little bells that hung there. There were pomegranates. And again, you've got with that theme of he's serving in the earthly representation of Eden, a place where God dwells with his people. And so his garments are going to be decorated accordingly. Okay, now we are going to jump ahead to Moses coming back down off the mountain. And there's so many things to think about here. There's so many things to think about. How long was Moses on the mountain? 40 days.
40 days.
He was up there 40 days. When was 40 days ago? Roughly December 14th, 13th, 15th, somewhere in there. That's a long time. Longer than that. Sorry. Yeah. That's a long time. We're back before Christmas, well before Christmas. That's a long time that Moses was up there. What had the children of Israel had pretty much nonstop since the beginning of the miracles when God sent Moses to them and Aaron to them at the beginning of Exodus? What had they always had? They'd always had God's representative right there. There were times they could hear God themselves. They had Moses with them. Okay, now, and I was talking about that just to give the setting. You know, it is, we don't have any trouble whatsoever beating up the children of Israel for what they did. You know, pointing at how stupid it was, how sinful it was, all of that. That's easy to do. Don't even have to try. I wouldn't have needed to prepare at all to do that. Could have talked about it, could have gotten on multiple different tracks, talked about that for more than an hour with no problem. It's always important to look at the what the situation they were in German Sitzenleben, the setting in life that they were in. We can always historically go and look at whomever, whatever, and make fun of them and think, man, how some? Well, no. They were people of their time. They were people of their situation, right? And if we're really going to learn, because it's not put here so we can make fun of them, so that we can laugh at them and pick on them and beat them up verbally and spiritually. That's not the point. It's there so that we can learn. Well, if I'm going to learn, I need to understand the situation. I need to understand the setting and what was going on, right? They'd always had Moses right there talking to them, and now he wasn't there. 40 days. He'd never been gone 40 days, ever. It's like the first time your parents leave you alone. Wow. Right? Now, balance that out. What did they have? There was this rumbling, thunder, and lightning presence of God on that mountain right there. Hard to miss. It was right there. That was going on right there. Where is he? Well, God still got him busy there on the mountain. How can I tell? Because the ground's still shaking underneath my feet. Because I can see the presence of God on that mountain. That cloud is still there, and lightning and whatever else. They were terrified, right, when they saw it. So that's the set. Just a little bit to set the situation of what we have here. Exodus 31:18. And he gave to Moses, when he had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, the 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone, written with the finger of God. We want to make sure and keep that as a stark contrast, a bright shining light of the grace and glory of God and his goodness, that what he's giving to them, all this stuff that he talked to Moses and told Moses, and the 10 words on the tablets written with God's own finger. What a precious condescension of God. Just as he came down on the mountain, he's giving them something that he made himself, that he carved those words into himself for them to have as a lasting testimony that would go there in the ark, just as was tradition with covenants between people and their God. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So Aaron said to them, "Take the rings of gold that are in your ears, in the ears of your wives, your sons and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took the rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron, and he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord." And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Okay, that's as far as we're going to get today. And there's more than enough to cover in the 20 minutes, the 20 minutes that we've got left. So it says that the people gathered together. They gathered themselves together to Aaron. And here repeatedly we see a pattern. We see a pattern of the people of Israel being what God will say in the section immediately following this, a stubborn and a stiff-necked people. it can rightly be said that the Israelites were a pain. They were a pain, that it was always difficult, and we all know people that we care about, that we love, that having to interact with them generally is a painful experience. They're just difficult. I told a parishioner one time, I really love you, but you make it hard. And he got it. He knew the way he was, right? Mom knows who I'm thinking about. Anyway, there's a lesson in that itself. God could have chosen the Norwegians. Now, the Norwegians didn't exist yet. And most of you don't have a lot of experience with Norwegians. Norwegians are just laid back, chill. They hardly ever get angry. They're just easygoing people. They've got their own faults, don't get me wrong, but they're just easy to get along with. If you can't get along with a Norwegian, you've got an attitude problem, But he didn't choose a people that was like that. He chose Israel. He created Israel, but he chose Israel. And what was Israel? They were a pain. They were rebellious. They were stubborn. And that teaches us something, because God loved them anyway, and he used them anyway. But it teaches us this. It wasn't about who they were. God loves us because he loves us. God doesn't love us because we're lovable. I'm not lovable. I'm not. I'm a sinful wretch. God loves me anyway. And that's true love. It's love that just loves. And he'll sacrifice for me, and he has. And he'll be patient with me, and he is. I'm a stubborn and a stiff-necked person, right? But there is nothing of worth and merit in me that made it that was the cause of God's grace and mercy being bestowed upon me. There's nothing in me. I am a poor, miserable sinner. And we need to remember that. When I see the children of Israel, I need to be open to the fact that there are things there that are in me, right? Bottom line, and we'll go into more detail on things, do you know what the children of Israel wanted? Why this whole thing happens? There's a lot of causality here. But when you get down to it, in its essence, do you know what they wanted? They wanted a God that did what they wanted him to. They wanted a God that was more like Aladdin's genie in a bottle, than the God that they had. I want a God who does what I want him to do. I want a God that answers the things I want answered. I want a God who gives me the things I want. I want a God who doesn't make me go through difficult things. I want a God who's there when I want him to be there. I want a God who answers me when I want answers. I hate silence. And trust me, I have had a whole lot of silence in my life. A whole lot of times where I'm asking why. And I didn't hear anything. God teaches through those things. The hidden God, the God who doesn't just jump up and tell us things, so that I can struggle, so that I can learn, so that I can learn that those things that I thought I wanted, I don't want. I want him. All gets very complex. But what I want, when it's just about me and my thinking, I want a God that's right there. He's a cow. He's right here, a golden calf. And understand with that, come on. Got to get the right note. Guess what they were making? Remember Apis? The bull. Well, where do you think they got the idea of a calf? The bull god Apis. Something that they knew. But they wanted to be able to see it. None of this Moses gets to go see him, and we don't. We want him right here. We want him right now. We want him to do what we want him to do. And this God also, bulls were a picture of fertility. Because you know what bulls have? Their blood. This is my, same thing goes for boars. I grew up working on a farm. Boars, I always thought that probably it was, because you can smell it on them, that their blood is about 50% what we consider blood and about 50% testosterone. Because they are just macho through and through and through, and they are all about one thing. And bulls are all about one thing. You do not want to try to control a bull when there is a cow, a heifer that is in season anywhere around, because you will not stop him. Okay? Fertility, sex, all ties together. And we're going to see that in how they worshiped their creation that represented Yahweh. And the God that the representation of a God that they made was supposed to be what? Up, make us gods who shall go before us. For this Moses, we do not know what has come from him. And then what is it that Aaron says? Verse 4, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And that word is Elohim. So they stated in the plural here, again, God, Elohim, is a plural verb noun in Hebrew. The im at the end is always plural. So while it says these are your gods, it's probably more accurate to say this is your God. Because how many calves did he make? He made one. This is your God, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. So the sin, if you want to categorize it according to the 10 words, wasn't so much the first commandment, you shall have no other gods, but rather you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. You shall not take it in vain. They took God and made him into something else, something they wanted, something that they could control, something that they could localize and have right there when they wanted it. Okay. But at the end, we'll go ahead and jump to it because I already started there. Aaron made the proclamation and said, tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Bulls were fertility gods. They weren't playing lawn darts. They weren't playing bocce ball. Okay. This word to play, interestingly, it's the word that's used. Remember, let's go back with Isaac when he was saying, no, Rebekah's my sister. She's not my wife. She's my sister. And the king looked out and saw him with Rebekah. And it says they were laughing. Scripture uses euphemisms all the time. They'll call it laughing. They were being intimate in whatever way. Okay? It's all tied together. And one of the meanings, especially in this form of the verb, there are different call, hifal, hifil, pual, pial, different forms of Hebrew verbs. There I had a grammar spasm. The one in the form that this is here in the pial is to revel, to celebrate noisily, or engage in uproarious festivities, often indulging in drinking and sexual activity, including orgies. Well, guess what? If your idea of God is a fertility God, where does that inevitably lead? sexual perversion. And you find that what we view and understand and know to be sexual perversion, we find that in the worship of almost every pantheon that you can think of. There were temple prostitutes. There were festivals that were orgies that had to do with fertility. And it wasn't just fertility as it related to progeny and having offspring, part of whom you could sacrifice to the gods, but also fertility of the land. Okay. So it just starts with a relatively, comparatively small, heinous act of a small, heinous act. It's kind of oxymoronic, but of wanting a God that they could see. And then what they do is they turn the worship of the true God, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the Most High, who sits above the council of the holy ones, the heavenly host. And how quickly, and this is a lesson in itself, how quickly going from focusing on what they wanted in God to it perverting down to a drunken beer orgy. And we got there in 6 verses. It took no time whatsoever. And there's so much here, down to 8 minutes. There's so much here. What did Aaron do? You know what courage is? Because later, when he talks about this, he's basically saying, I was scared. And it says, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him. That same phrase also means against, like opposed. Prepositions, they're funky. They define spatial relationships. And when you get into the abstract of them, that's why one preposition can mean so many different things. When you go to learn a language, the hardest thing to learn are how they use the prepositions, right? To, toward, and against are the same thing. They're the same direction. To, toward, against. But we picture against more like this. They were coming at him. They wanted this. And you know what Aaron did? He wimped. True courage is doing the right thing when it's difficult. It's easy to do the right thing when it's easy. It's really easy. But Aaron was there by himself. And while Aaron was the mouthpiece for Moses to Pharaoh, he wasn't the one giving the message. He was just reading a text, basically. Now it was just him. And Moses left him in charge. And he wimps. And he goes ahead and gives them what they wanted, a God that they could see. And what is it they say? He tells them, take off the rings of gold that are in your ears and your wives and your sons and your daughters and bring them to me. Interestingly, a lot of the stuff's like, oh, gold earrings. Well, where else are you going to get gold? First of all, this stuff is, we go back to Exodus 12:35. The people of Israel had also done as Moses told them, Exodus 12, way back before they left, for they had asked the Egyptians for silver and gold jewelry and clothing, and the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians so that they let them have what they asked. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. Later, we're going to see that more of this stuff that they had is what's used to build the temple. And all the gold and all that stuff that we've already talked about. But if we go back to Exodus 35:4, and Jacob is taking away all of the foreign deities, etc., and burying them, getting rid of them, purifying. It was a time of purification. There it says, so they gave to Jacob all the foreign gods that they had, because they'd come from Laban right? Back in Ur of the Chaldeans with all the false gods, right? And the rings that were in their ears, Jacob hid them under the terebinth tree that was near Shechem. So in whatever way, this jewelry had a cultic connection. Cult simply meaning worship, right? It had a cultic connection. And so when he asked, he didn't just ask for gold. He asked for gold earrings, gold rings, could have been bangles or whatever they wore on their arms, etc. as well. It had cultic connection with what they'd gotten, because they'd gotten it in Egypt. And in Egypt, what was one of the things that they worshiped? A cow, a bull. And again, this is really important, because while we have a lot of familiarity with cows, right down the road, we call our road Cow Road. As you go on farther down, we like to take Cow Road, and there are different places you turn and you see more cows. Cows are cute. Cows are cuddly. The difference between a cow and a bull is like the difference between me and Hulk Hogan. The difference is huge. Power, strength, all of this stuff. And so these objects had in their mind their worldview, right? Not mine. I'm not trying to plug my worldview into this text, because it makes no sense to me whatsoever. I'm trying to understand their worldview and use it like lenses that I look at this text to understand it. All of this stuff was connected. And so it's inexcusable. Don't get me wrong. It's inexcusable. It's abhorrent. It's disgusting. An orgy, no matter how it's disgusting, right? But we can follow the progression of how so quickly it gets to be a drunken beer orgy, right? And then what does Aaron do? Above it all, he then builds an altar before this thing, and there are sacrifices. Now, later on, I want to make sure and touch on this now. We'll come back to it later. Aaron gets away with this, in effect. He gets scolded. He gets reprimanded. Moses is going to take some pretty severe action, very severe action. And with that, think of where Moses is, what he's doing. And then he comes down to this. Context again as to his actions. Why does Aaron get away with it? Because in effect he does. I mean, there's atonement for it, there's all of that. But why doesn't this exclude him permanently from being any kind of priest whatsoever? Well, there's kind of a loophole, if you will. And I like to use the term loophole, but I don't know what else to call it. The ritual, the worship, how things were supposed to be done hadn't been set up yet. That was going on up there in the mountain. Aaron didn't know anything about it. So there was kind of ignorance of the law, because the law hadn't been given. There is no law if it hasn't been given. So operating outside of the law, when the law wasn't there yet, Moses is going to get what we will call a pass. Aaron, who did I say? Moses? I said Moses. Aaron is going to get, in effect, a pass. I want to thank you for listening. I want to encourage you. Give us a thumbs up. It really does make a difference. I also invite you to subscribe. And if you subscribe, then make sure and hit the notification bell so that you are made aware when we put out new content. Please share this video with others. Share it on your social media platform. Send it to anyone you think might benefit from this teaching. And finally, come and pay us a visit. This is our website, decodingthedeception.com. If you know our name, you know the website. We've got all our Bible teaching videos out here, as well as a host of other resources to help you be informed so that you can decode the deception. This is Matthias 76. Together, we are decoding the deception. God bless and have a great day.